Hello, and welcome back to Turnaround Politics. Today, we're going to be looking at the 2020 presidential election and seeing who I believe is going to be the victor and what I believe the 2020 electoral college map will look like. So, for this video, I will be using Real Clear Politics polling along with 538's polling, and I'm going to be using Real Clear Politics' idea of toss-up states in this election. Now let's go ahead and fill in some states. We're going to be filling in states that are solid, lean, or likely. Montana being a likely, and then Idaho being a solid, Wyoming being a solid, Utah being a lean, and then all the Dakotas, all but one of the districts in Nebraska. Nebraska as a whole and two of their districts are solid Republican, with one of them being a toss-up state this time around. And I'm going to go ahead and fill that one in for you guys. It is favored for Joe Biden to win Nebraska's second district. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. It's one vote. It's not a very important thing unless we get to 269, which would be interesting to see what happens. Kansas, Oklahoma are both solid. Lean for Arizona, Louisiana, Mississippi, and solid for Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, a likely for South Carolina, a likely for Indiana. Those, along with Alaska. Sorry about that, Alaska. Being off the map, sometimes you forget. These are all the states that Real Clear Politics as safe for either the for Donald Trump, and one of them is a toss-up state that Joe Biden I filled in Nebraska's second district, but it's one of the few and it's very small. Now let's look at Joe Biden's safe states. Joe Biden will have much more, and it's hard not to when you have a solid state in California with 55, then a likely for Oregon. Washington is a lean, Colorado is a likely, Mexico is a likely. I personally thought New Mexico was going to be a toss-up state this election, but it turns out Real Clear Politics perceives them as a solid state. I've seen the polling, and I agree. It's just interesting to see which states are toss-up states and which states aren't. This time around, though, a lot of the toss-up states are what you would typically perceive as toss-up states. However, Texas and Georgia being outliers this time around, they typically are not toss-up states, but they are this time around. And Vermont solid, New York solid, and then Virginia is a and then Hawaii, obviously. I believe that is all except for Maine. And the second district in Maine is currently a toss-up state. No one knows. It's hard to get polling with only one state being a toss-up state. It's very hard to get polling done. When it's one vote, it's very hard to get polling done. It's almost impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but you have to look at the district, and also not much polling is done on even small states like South Dakota, New Hampshire, Iowa. Imagine who would want to do polling on one single electoral college vote. That's why it's so hard. But they do believe that Donald Trump's going to win it, but it's not going to be super in his favor. Now, these are the toss-up states. 209, typically it's 211, but I already filled in the single electoral college votes. Let's get started with looking over towards the west. Nevada, been a historic toss-up state. This time around, Real Clear Politics has it a +6 for Joe Biden, and 538 has it a +5.8, leading me to believe that Joe Biden will win Nevada. I think it's going to be closer to Oregon, Colorado, and New Mexico. A lot of the toss-up states are toss-up states because historically they've been toss-up states, and we don't necessarily know if the polling is going to be great in those states coming out of those states. So to be safe, they consider them toss-up states. Sometimes you really don't. Let's look at New Hampshire real quick. New Hampshire, it has a leading for Joe Biden at a +8. Real Clear Politics 538 plus 6.7. I think personally it's not a solid, but it is a lean state for the uh, Democrats in New Hampshire. It's still considered a toss up state because New Hampshire has historically been a toss up state. A lot of times that's what happens. So we can move on to Missouri. And Missouri is a toss up state this time around, but polling coming out of Missouri has a Trump at a plus 7.7 and 538's a plus 6.7. You wouldn't really consider that a toss up state with that much polling and it being a lower amount of electoral college votes, so, like, not much polling will be coming out of there, so this is only the polling that we see. But historically, toss-up state, they make it a toss-up state in this time too. However, let's move to something that's not typically a toss-up state and is only a toss-up state because of how close the polling is in the state. Texas. Texas has a Trump 3.5 according to Real Clear Politics. They just take an average of all the polls. They see all the polls, with the polls leaning, and they just average it. However, 538 has a +1 for Trump, a lot closer according to 538. That's because they take on how many people the polls do, the recency of the polls, so they put emphasis on how the more recent polls, because more recent polls are perceived to be more accurate. Most of the time they are. As they say, the only accurate poll are exit polls. So the exit polls are done after the person's voted. So it's guaranteed to know, pretty much guaranteed to know who they voted for. And so like that's why they put recency as one of their factors in determining polling. They have a +1 for Texas. Historically not a toss-up state. It's not been voted for a Democrat since the 70s. And so, like, you would think that President Trump would be guaranteed to win it. He is not this year. A lot of Democrats are putting money into Texas, one of the biggest things to help win an election. A lot of time into Texas, voting, registering voters, speaking to voters, helping voting polling places and stuff like that in the cities. So it's going to be a lot closer this time around. We saw in 2018 a Senate race that was much closer between Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. Probably should have. That's because, I mean, I'm not gonna front on with you guys. Beto O'Rourke spent tens of millions of dollars in Texas. That no doubt helps a candidate. But Texas will be one of the closer states for Trump. It should be a little worrisome for the Republicans that Texas is going this way. Because if Texas continues on this way, they'll eventually go Democrat. And there's no way that a Republican president wins an election again if Texas is flipped. Between Texas and California, that is over 90 votes. That's insane. Like guaranteed 90 votes in the electoral college, it would be so hard to flip that. Now let's move over to Arizona. In the video I did a month ago, this is a video getting put out 50 days before the election. I'm excited for the election to going to happen. I'm excited for the next 50 days, but Arizona, I thought it was going to continue trending towards Donald Trump. However, I've seen the polls. RCP has a 5.6 for Biden, and 538 has a 5.1 for Biden. I have not seen that lean over to Donald Trump over time. It's kind of surprising to me that that hasn't happened, but I think a lot of it has to do with the Senate race going on there. The GOP nominee is not very liked in Arizona versus a Democrat and Mark Kelly who's very much liked in Arizona. And I think that's just hurting Donald Trump. It is too bad for him that this happened on a year that it's also a Senate election with a bad candidate in Arizona. So it's just one of those things that like hurts the presidents, hurts other people running in that state. Now let's move over to Minnesota, up to the north. Minnesota, RCP polling has 6.4 for Biden. A 538 has a plus 7.7. I think that's going to be a lean. I think it's going to be much closer to numbers in Washington. Minnesota, very, very much very pro Joe Biden time around. I do see a lot of stories coming out of Minnesota about mayors turning over to the Democrat Party, joining up with Trump. I've seen a lot of stories put out across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan about that kind of stuff. Um, Polling doesn't suggest that those kind of stories are affecting the polls. So, like, 7.7 is a very large lead, so I have to give it to him. Now let's move on down to Iowa. Iowa has a Trump 1.7, and then 538 has 1.8. Very close election, Iowa. This comes down to Joni Ernst there, is not very liked, and her Teresa Greenfield, who's running against her, is quite popular in Iowa. Their election actually has Greenfield leading. I don't think that will happen. I don't think Greenfield will win, and I don't think Joe Biden will win, but it will be much closer because of the Senate election, because that's going to be more money spent there for the Senate election than the presidential, because Iowa has so few electoral college votes. But we'll see. I think that it's going to be barely a win for Trump in Iowa. However, it still will be a win. Joni Ernst will win. I'll do another update on the Senate elections come next week. But yeah, let's move on down to North Carolina. North Carolina, the closest state in this election, I will say. North Carolina, RCP polling plus 0.8. 0.8, not even a whole percent. And for 538, it's plus 1.1. More recent polls show North Carolina going to Joe Biden. Older polls showing Donald Trump. North Carolina is going to be close regardless. However, the last I've looked, Cal Cunningham is winning in the polls by 3.5% in North Carolina versus Tom Tillis, the Republican incumbent. This is another place where Donald Trump is hurting because the Senate election is going on there. Joe Biden wouldn't spend a lot of time in North Carolina. He has more important things in like Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, and areas like that. But North Carolina is getting a lot of money spent there and a lot of ads spent there because there's Senate people running. And they're going to link their names to the presidential candidates because that's just what you do when you're running for Senate. If you're a Democrat running for Senate, you're going to link your name to Joe Biden. For a Republican, you'll link it to Donald Trump. That's what the two-party system does. So, like, that's only hurting Donald Trump in the polling in North Carolina, but I still think he'll pull it out. But this will be one of those elections where it might be 0.5% is what gets the person all the electoral college votes. Now, going down to Georgia, Georgia has two Senate elections this year. Neither are really hurting Trump. Very good candidates for the Republican Party in Georgia. RCP has it a plus 1.3, and then 538 has a 1.7. So 538 is actually favoring Donald Trump in Georgia more than the average polling. I agree with them. Georgia's going to be uh, one of those states that Donald Trump wins. Both these states, Texas and Georgia, are toss-up states this time around. The bigger thing about them being toss-up states this time around is that they are toss-up states, and it's a trend towards voting for Democrat. And it's scary for the Republicans if they lose both Texas and Georgia. However, I don't see that happening anytime soon, especially not in this election. Let's move down to Florida. Both polling has Biden favored. RCP has a Biden at a plus 1.2. 538 is a plus 2.6. I'm going to have to disagree with both of them. Florida, that's where Donald Trump is putting a lot of time and money, and he's going to win Florida. That's just something I believe. It'll be a close win, obviously, but Florida, I've seen a lot of stories come out of Florida. Florida governor is a Republican. I've seen a lot of stuff coming out of Florida where I believe that it's going to be a Donald Trump win. A lot of stories. It's just one of those gut feelings. The polling isn't saying the same thing, but polling wasn't saying Donald Trump was going to win in 2016. I believe Florida will be voting for Donald Trump. Now let's move over to Ohio. Ohio has Real Clear Politics has it at a plus 2.4 for Biden. 538 has Trump plus 1.1. It's the only state that those two polling sources differ on. However, I think 538 has a great methodology to their polling, and that's why I'm going to have to agree with them there. I've also seen a lot of rallies in Ohio, and I feel like it's one of those states that Donald Trump is going to fight hard in. This is going to be one of the closest states. It wasn't very close in 2016 with an 8-point win for Donald Trump, but that was a historic win. He won that by a lot farther margin than any of the last presidents in the 2000s. Like most elections in Ohio are less than 3%. He blew out Hillary Clinton in Ohio. I don't think he'll do the same thing to Joe Biden this time around. No, it's very close. So far, we have 248 for Donald Trump, 244 for Joe Biden. These three states are the three states that flipped it over for Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. These are the three states that the polling was wrong in. So let's move on up to the first state I'm going to be talking about. It is Wisconsin. Wisconsin, it has the fewest electoral college votes. That's why I'm going there. Wisconsin, we've seen their governor flip over to a Democrat in the last election that he ran in. The incumbent lost. Very surprising. Maybe showing a trend towards the Democrat Party in Wisconsin. The polling shows that RCP has a Wisconsin plus 6.3, and 538 has Biden as a plus 6.5. Both very close. Wisconsin is having a ton of polling, ton of data coming out of Wisconsin, and I love that. It makes this job so much easier picking when there's like 3 polls done a week. Makes it a lot more assurance when voting for this. And that's why I have a comfortable saying that Wisconsin is going to be a lean state. Or no, yeah, well, likely state. Less than 5% of the vote will be differing between them. It shows that it's going to be closer to 6.5, but I think Donald Trump. It's still 50 days until the election, and I think it will shrink. The race will shrink up a little bit more between now and then. Now go over and move on to Michigan. Michigan is one of those states that Donald Trump barely won in 2016, and I think it's one of those states that Joe Biden might blow Donald Trump out in. RCP has the average polling at a plus 4.2, but 538 has a much different story to tell with a plus 7.5 for Joe Biden. I like 538's polling in this state, their methodology in this state. A lot of polling is going to come out of this state. A lot of uh, a lot of press conferences, rallies, and stuff will happen in Michigan. Don't know whether that will hurt or help either candidate with the coronavirus going on, but I think this is going to be a bigger win than Wisconsin in 2020, come November 3rd, 50 days from now. So make sure you guys register to vote in your states. Make sure you guys applied for absentee ballots or mail-in votes if you guys want to do that. If you guys are voting in person, make sure that you have a group of people that will hold you guys accountable to vote. Have a group of voting buddies. Send out pictures of yourself and your I voted sticker. Just make sure to publicize voting. Make sure everyone goes out to vote. That's what makes elections better. More people voting. So right now, with Michigan over, it has a Joe Biden winning at 270. But it's still important to talk about Pennsylvania. Uh, a lot of these states could turn over in the last few days. I mean, let's say that Donald Trump wins the second district. It puts it at 269 for Joe Biden. It easily could if Donald Trump won Pennsylvania, 269, 269. Well, I'll put out a video later this week about what would happen in this situation. But Joe Biden, Joe Biden is currently leading in Pennsylvania polls with a plus 4.3 in RCP and a 538 for plus 4.9 according to 538. Got my words mixed up. I see Donald Trump losing Pennsylvania, Joe Biden winning it. It comes down to the rural votes. That's what won Donald Trump in 2016. A lot of rural voters came out to vote for him. They were very pro-Trump. I don't know if I see this time around that happening, or on the other hand, bigger cities, more populated areas for Democrats coming out to vote for Joe Biden. Pennsylvania is a state that Donald Trump will spend a lot of time in. Pennsylvania and Florida are going to be the states that he spends a ton of time in because those are going to be the closest states in this election, other than North Carolina, but I don't know how much I see North Carolina flipping over to a Democrat this time around. So let's go ahead and give this to Joe Biden. So currently the polling, and in my personal opinion, has Joe Biden 289 electoral college votes to Donald Trump's 249. I'll make another one of these videos closer to the election. This might be different come then, but that's how I perceive that this November 3rd election happening 50 days from now. Thank you for watching. If you could, please like and subscribe to my channel. A subscribe to my channel helps me so much. Hitting the subscribe button, make sure that you get all the videos in your subscription feed. And if you could hit the bell, making sure you turn notifications on, will give you an alert every time I put out a new video, which is trying to be once a day. Thank you guys. Please like and subscribe. Share these videos. I really want to make great content for you guys. Put in the comment section what I can do better for you guys, what I can do worse, and just say if you disagree with me, say what state you believe is going to be the closest in this upcoming election. I'd love to hear about from you guys what you guys think the closest states in this election are going to be. But this is my official 50 days from now election electoral college map. Thanks for watching.